Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Speaker Spotlight. I am Dave Murray, your host for this show. And if you recall, this is the opportunity that we have to sit down and chat with all the tremendous speakers that we will have for this year's Customer Service Revolution Conference. And again, that conference is coming up soon. It's going to be on September 11th and September 12th, 2019 in beautiful downtown Cleveland, Ohio. It's really creeping up on us. And today, I'm thrilled to have Max Yoder. Max, thanks for making some time for us.
Thanks for having me, Dave. It's good to be here.
We were just chatting before we went live that, man, September's right around the corner.
2 months, man. 2 months. It'll become quick.
That's great. I'm looking forward to it. So let me tell our audience a little bit about you for those that don't know. So let me tell you about Max, because he's got a really interesting background. And I'm excited to see him speak at the Customer Service Revolution because he's going to speak on a topic that is really near and dear to my heart. It's all about culture and teamwork within your organization, which is so important and oftentimes lacking out there, unfortunately. So a little bit more about Max. So first of all, he is the author of a great business book called Do Better Work. So obviously the title right there is pretty intriguing. But what really caught my eye about this book is one testimonial it got. Jay Bear, friend of the Customer Service Revolution. If you were at the CSRev a few years ago, you saw Jay speak on Hug Your Haters. He gave a testimonial to Max's book, which says that it is devastatingly effective. Now, if the title didn't grab you, that testimonial I'm sure will, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is so cool. It is so cool. Jay was really complimentary about the practicality of the book. And, you know, it doesn't take very long to read. And I think he also appreciated that too, which is like getting to the point, making points about, you know, anybody on a team being able to do better work. I think that's appealing, right? It's not just the manager. It's anybody on a team can drive better work. So I loved his review and I appreciated it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Max is co-founder and CEO of a great company based in Indianapolis called Lessonly. And Lessonly is a platform that helps organizations do better work and help them live better lives. So how cool is that? I mean, what a great purpose for your business.
I'll tell you, Dave, it was awesome. When we started making training software, we were not completely sure of what the mission was going to be. And then it became pretty clear over the first few years that when people understand what to do, they do it. And when they have a good day at work, they take that home with them. So we want to help people do better work so they can live better lives. And it's been a lot of fun to be able to help do that in our own way.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. And, you know, I know that so many organizations that I walk into for the first time, that's really lacking, right? There's a need out there for that connection, for people to have that better understanding. There's really a need for what you guys do.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies set up their teammates and they say, hey, I really hope you'll do better work here or great work here. And the teammate's like, yeah, I'd love to do great work here. And then the company is like, yeah, well, we're so excited to see you do that. But then they do not spell out what that work looks like. And so when you're unclear and you leave things up to assumption, you know, don't be surprised when somebody assumes a different way of doing the work than you hoped they would. And, you know, with training software, it's really just communicating clearly what is expected of individuals so they can really thrive and exceed in their roles. But if you don't communicate those fundamental expectations, you're going to make them guess. And I think you and I have both experienced moments when we were guessing and we wish we weren't guessing. We wish somebody would just help us see with a little more clarity what is expected of us and what we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that out there so often, as do you, I'm sure, where companies make a lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
They assume people have the knowledge. They assume they have the understanding, the clarity, whatever it is.
Yep.
And sometimes the team member is either too scared to ask, too new, whatever the issue is, and that leaves a lot of discrepancies out there.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, I think there's a concept or a phenomenon I talk about in the book called the curse of knowledge. I think one of the most important things we can do as individuals is be aware of the curse of knowledge, which is that when I learn something or you learn something, it's easy to assume that everybody else has learned it too. We're all walking around assuming that everybody has the same background information that we do. And they don't have the same background information that we do, because nothing in this world is obvious. Everything in this world that we know, we learned at some point in our lives. And not everybody learns the same things and not everybody retains the same information. So if we can all remember that nothing is obvious, that if it feels obvious, it's because we forgot how hard it was to learn, That's a great Marvin Minsky quote. If it feels obvious to you, it's because you forgot how hard it was to learn. I think we can take a more generous and charitable posture to explaining things to individuals and to being clear about what we need. Because if we realize that people aren't going to know what we need, then we need to communicate. We need to take responsibility for that. And the curse of knowledge is just a great reminder that people will not have the same background information you do. What is obvious to you may not be obvious to them. So take the time to be clear.
And that's a great segue to where I wanted to start with my first question for you. I wanted to start with the book. So the book's title is Do Better Work, Creating More Clarity, Camaraderie, and Progress on Your Team, which, as I said at the top, is so intriguing. It has to be so intriguing to so many people out there. But one of the things that you talk about, as you were talking about us making these assumptions or not sharing the knowledge, is that what happens is people just don't know how to do great work. It's as simple as that. They don't know what it looks like if we don't share that with them. And as you mentioned in the book, what that leads to is unfortunate things like unremarkable output and unhealthy communication, which is one that I know I see all over. I'm always hearing that we're communicating too much, we're not communicating enough, it's not clear. Communication is such a big one out there. And so my first question is maybe a little simplistic, but why is it that we don't know how to do better work?
Yeah, I think communication is really challenging, and we are, the fundamentals we get taught in school. Think about the fundamentals we get taught in school. Language arts is not necessarily communication, and the fundamentals of being clear in communication are not something that we get a lot of reps at. We don't get a lot of coaching on. And again, the curse of knowledge plagues us, so we walk around thinking everybody has the same information that we do. If we can just get some subtle reminders that it's okay to ask clarifying questions, it's okay to kind of not be perfect and share before you're ready. These things increase communication, but we have some kind of natural biases. We have some natural concerns and kind of insecurities that stop us from communicating better. So my call to everybody with the book is communication and clarity and camaraderie. They're on you. Don't wait for these things to happen. These behaviors in this book are ways for you to provoke more clarity and more camaraderie and get clear communication out there. It is all of our responsibility to seek clarity. It's all of our responsibility to build camaraderie, which is, a mutual trust and respect between individuals. And I think a lot of the time, we kind of outsource our obligations to our managers. We're like, well, if the manager doesn't do it, then I don't have to do it. And I'm just really tired of that. I want people to take responsibility, and if they want to see something, I want them to be that thing. And I think we all want to see clarity. I think we all want to see more camaraderie. So each one of us taking responsibility for that is a very powerful thing. And that's really the only way to make a difference in the world. So this book just lays out basic behaviors that anybody can do at work in order to build more clarity, more camaraderie. And if they do them, things will get clearer and camaraderie will improve. And if it doesn't, you will at least know that you've done your part in the equation, which is all you can really do.
I love that idea of outsourcing things to your manager, whether it's responsibility or lack of knowledge. You're right. I never thought of it that way, but it's an out for a lot of people. If the manager didn't know or didn't tell me, then it's not my responsibility, and that's not the case.
It's not how we want anybody to behave, right? If you were the manager, you would not want somebody to behave that way on your team. And so if you're on a team, put yourself in your manager's shoes. What would you want their teammates to be doing? Well, you'd probably want them to raise their hand if they were unsure. You'd probably want them to raise their hand if they saw a good idea. You'd want them to do it tactfully, and we all have the ability to do that. But you'd want communication if you were a manager. You'd want clarity about what you might be missing and what opportunities you might not be seeing. So let's be the teammates we want other people to be. Instead of sitting back and going, they're not doing a good job, let's make sure that we are being the teammates that we would like to see more of in the world. Yeah,
I love that. That's a great message. And sticking on the book, Max, you outline, and you started to talk about this, your 8 ideas for transforming that culture and performance. Can you share a couple of those with us?
Yeah, I'd love to. So think about all these ideas as ways to build stronger relationships, whether you're at work, whether you're with your partner, whether you're with a friend. 2 things I want you to keep in mind as you're going through your day-to-day behaviors and you're working to build stronger relationships. Because relationships are the backbone of all progress, right? If we're not relating to one another and connecting with one another and then communicating well, we're not going to make a heck of a lot of progress. So 2 behaviors that I'll highlight from the book. One of them is ask clarifying questions. It turns out that the older we get, the fewer questions we ask. I mean, think about kids. They're so inquisitive. They're asking so many questions. They're curious about the world. But the older we get, the more we're expected to just know how the world works. The more that we hear an acronym that we've never heard before, and we act like we know what the person is saying, and then we go and Google it later. My call to folks is just ask for clarity. If somebody uses an acronym you've never heard before, there is nothing wrong with you saying, hey, can we pause for a second? What can you explain to me what that means? I'd really like to keep up with this conversation. I argue in the book that I think we all act like we're in an Aaron Sorkin drama where everybody's a really fast talker and everybody's on the ball all the time. But that's not life, right? Aaron Sorkin himself says, my dialogue is not realistic. It isn't realistic. We should not strive to act like we're on a TV show. We're going to leave one another behind if we all act like we know what's happening. My argument is don't try to look like the smartest person in the room. Be the person in the room that keeps everybody on the same page, because that is really the smartest person in the room. Somebody who works really hard to keep everybody on the same page. Because if we're all on the same page together, we're going to do better work. But if we're all at different spots in our understanding, we're not likely to excel. So asking clarifying questions is all about raising your hand anytime something is unclear, keeping the curse of knowledge in mind, right? If the curse of knowledge is real, where I know something and then I assume you know it too, that means I'm going to under-explain and leave out important background information. And your job to fight that is to ask clarifying questions, because you can't control what I do. You can't make me be clear. All you can do is bring more clarity to the conversation by saying, hey, Max, can I get another example? Or hey, Max, can you repeat that again? I want to make sure I understood. I think one of the reasons we don't ask clarifying questions, Dave, is we worry we're going to come off as challenging the other person's ideas. So I always encourage folks to let people know why you're asking for clarity. Saying things like, I think this is really interesting, but I want to make sure I understand it well. Can I ask a few questions? Asking for permission and letting somebody know why you want to ask questions. It's not because you want to cut the idea down. It's not because you want to be a negative Nancy or stop progress. It's because you want to make sure you can contribute and you want to be thoughtful about the topic at hand. So, hey, may I ask a few questions? If anybody rejects that notion, I think you should get off of that team. I think a lot of people are very open to that, but first you have to give them an idea of why you're asking. Don't make them guess why you're asking. Give them clarity as to why you're asking. In the book, I lay out a ton of scenarios where clarifying questions are appropriate. I cannot think of a single day when you should not ask clarifying questions, because life is confusing, life is complex, and we need to reach one another and be clear with one another. And then, second thing I'll tell you, Dave, another behavior in the book is highlight what's working. This is an idea that we spend a lot of our time looking for problems. We're actually wired to look for problems. We're wired to focus on the negative, on the threats, which means we oftentimes don't look around our relationships, look around our offices, look around our teams and say, what's going well around here? And how do we do more of it? At any given time, some things are going well and some things are not going well. And it's our responsibility to make more time to find the things that are going well. And there's a couple of reasons why. One of them is not everybody knows what works on a team. And when we highlight what's working, we make the things that work more prevalent so more people can apply them. So here's an example. If my teammate, let's say Katie, she's right behind the wall that I'm pointing at right now that you can't see. She's working on the other side of the wall. When Katie does something that I really appreciate, I let her know that I appreciate it. And I'll sometimes let the team know how much I appreciate it. And I'll let them know why I appreciate it so much. What that does is it gives people a model of the behavior that I want to see more of. And not everybody is aware of the behaviors I want to see more of. So when I make time to highlight anybody on the team, Katie or anybody else, the idea is Katie needs to know that I'm appreciative, and other people need to know what good work looks like. And she is exemplifying it in so many ways. So when I highlight that, I lift it up so other people can see. And you can do that too. We can do that in our relationships, with our spouses, with our friends, making a little time to go, you know what I think you're really good at? It's a beautiful thing to share appreciation, but I think it's a very vulnerable thing. And I want us to do more of it. The more we start to look for what works, Dave, the more we find it. And then it turns out that we don't see so much negative in our lives, because whatever we focus on gets bigger. Everything we focus on gets bigger. So I want you to ask yourself, and I hope the people who are watching ask themselves, what am I focusing on? Because whatever it is, it's going to get bigger. If you're looking for things that aren't going well, you will find them and they will get bigger. And if you're looking for things that aren't going well, you will find them and they will get bigger. So those are 2 highlights, and we got 6 more to go. And I'm excited to talk to you about them live and in person.
Yeah, I can't wait, because they're such great words of wisdom and things that we all should be thinking about. But quite honestly, we either don't make the time, we feel we're too busy, whatever it is, we need to really remind ourselves of these things. And I love the clarifying questions. And that actually leads me to my next question, because one of the things that I like about the book and what you've already talked about today, and I've heard you speak about this previously, is how this is for anybody. right? Any member of the team can do this.
Yep.
And I think for a lot of people, when they hear about culture, they think it's something that happens to them, not necessarily something that they're a part of. So asking clarifying questions obviously is right up there as far as how everyone can be involved. What are a couple other ways that people that might be on the front line, front end of things, how can they also be part of this? How can they guide this effort?
Yeah. So let's say that you are in a meeting. If you make a little time during that meeting to say things like, here's what I really appreciated about this meeting, or here's something I've really been appreciating about this team. No, I don't want you to be a manager doing that. I want everybody on the team to do that. And it's so inspiring when you go around the room and people are like, here's something I really appreciated. People get lifted up. One more thing I'll say, Dave, about kind of something everybody can do is we can all bring an attitude to every project or initiative that says, let's make this fun. You don't have to be disingenuous when you say, let's make this fun. You just say, I'd really like this to be a good time. I'm excited to work with you all. I'm excited to get whatever it is we're working on done. When we do that, we increase everybody else's excitement. It is my belief, and it's not just my belief, it's just reality, that our behaviors are contagious. Everything that we do is contagious. And I want people to think about, what am I spreading? When you walk into a room, if you say, oh, we got to do this again, you're spreading that sense of negativity, and people will catch it. They'll catch it whether you're the boss or not. There's been many studies out. It has nothing to do with whether you're the manager or not. You can set a tone in the room simply by showing up and saying, let's make this fun. Let's make this exciting. Let's have a good time with this. Or by saying, this is going to stink. This is going to be boring. So I want you to think about what energy you bring to a space, because you are contagious. Then I want you to think about, maybe even your friend group outside of work. What energy do they bring to you? Because whether you like it or not, it's affecting you. So I want you to find friends who look on the bright side and who try to find more positivity. But I also just want you to take ownership for finding that positivity yourself, because you're contagious, and you can be contagious to your friend group. You can be contagious to your work group. But when I tell you you're contagious, what I want you to hear is everything you do matters. So either do the things you want to see more of, and if you end up doing something you don't want to see more of, just say you're sorry. Because you're either doing the things that you want to see more of, or you're not. And when you're not, it's okay. We're humans. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to behave in ways that we don't want to see in other people. All we have to do is apologize, and then we're modeling again. Then we're setting an example again. Nobody's going to nail this, but everybody should be working on it. And when we do it well, we should be proud. And when we don't do it well, we should apologize. And then we can be proud again, because we're doing the right thing.
Yeah. What am I spreading? What a great question to ask ourselves, because we're not always mindful of it, right? Sometimes we forget, and we're in our own little world, having our own little issue going on, and we forget what we're doing to our team, to our spouse, whomever.
Yeah, you're right. It's hard to remember. I mean, we're not taught that we're contagious. And I just want people to realize that you are. Think about the next time you go through a grocery store line, you're at the checkout counter. The way you treat the individual who's checking you out of the store is going to set a tone for the next person who's right behind you. If you treat them with grace and respect and kindness, that person after you is a lot more inclined to do the same. If you treat them, if you're curt and you're not very courteous, that person behind you is a lot more likely to do the same, whether we realize it or not. We're always setting a tone no matter where we are. And the point is not that you're not allowed to have a bad day. You are allowed to have a bad day. But try to process that in a way that doesn't put it on other people. And if you walk into a room and you're not feeling like your best self, just let folks know that it's not your best day. Because then they don't have to guess, right? Then they're not sitting there going, I bet Dave's frustrated with me, because you're probably not, right? It's just probably a frustration that is bigger than whatever the meeting is that you're in right now. And letting people know, you don't have to tell them what it is, just letting them know that, hey, I'm just in a funk today, and I apologize in advance if I seem a little lower energy than I normally am. I just want you all to know it has nothing to do with you. Yeah. Then people know what to do after that. We just need that clarity.
And you're right too, as humans, we're kind of programmed to assume the worst, right? If you seem upset, Max, I'm going to make an assumption that I did something wrong, like you said, and that may not be the case at all.
No, most of the time it isn't, right?
Right. I wanted to ask you, the next question was, can you share a little bit about Lessonly and the platform, and how that helps organizations bridge this gap and start to focus on everything that you've already talked about?
Yeah, so this book is about communication, and I think training is fundamentally about communication. What are we communicating to individuals on teams to make sure that they have clarity about what's expected of them, what's needed from them? The training software we make is focused on frontline teams, or what we call customer facing teams. Those two teams are sales teams and customer service teams. which is why the customer service revolution is going to be so fun. Training software is so important for customer service teams because the reality of of folks in the customer service world is their jobs are changing all the time. There's new pricing, there's new promotions, there's new processes, and the customer is going to call, or the customer is going to chat, or the customer is going to need questions answered. And if you don't have the answers for them, that doesn't feel very good. So training and retraining become this continuous motion on customer service teams. I think a lot of people hear the word training, and we make training software. So I know that a lot of people hear the word training and they conflate it with onboarding. Training starts with onboarding, but it certainly should not stop there. I mean, the company continues to evolve way after your first day or your first 6 weeks, right? If you're not continuously re-educating, retraining on the latest and greatest playbook, people will all be on different versions of the playbook. So we have to be really conscious about what we're teaching one another, how we're teaching it, and Lessonly's a tool to help you do that. We basically do two things. We help you learn something, and then we help you practice it. And the idea there is knowing something does not it does not mean you're going to do that thing, right? You have to be able to practice to build the muscle to make that thing that you first have to consciously do, something that is unconscious, right? We learn something, we have to go through the motions a few times consciously or many times consciously in order to make this an unconscious behavior. And when it's an unconscious behavior, it starts to be much more natural. So we help you educate individuals on the latest and greatest, and then we help them practice that latest and greatest. So if there's a new talk track, if there's a new way to describe something, practicing that in a safe environment with your microphone turned on, you can listen to yourself. I think one of the things we really underestimate in training is how much self-assessment has value. The ability to go review your own tape, to listen to yourself do something. We are very hard on ourselves most of the time. When we listen to ourselves on tape, though, we can hear areas where we can really improve, and we probably will improve once we hear them for ourselves. I think a lot of times we think a manager needs to give feedback, or peers need to give feedback. My take is that's helpful, but a lot of the growth comes from self-assessment, watching yourself, being aware of yourself, and saying, how do I want to improve whatever it is I just did? So Lessonly helps us you do all of the above.
Yeah, as you were speaking, it really made me think of some of my past experiences out there in my career. And a lot of organizations, just as you said, they see training as onboarding. And once you get through onboarding, you should be good to go. And you should just absorb these things somehow magically and just do the job. And almost to the point where I think sometimes additional training is almost seen as a weakness, or at least maybe a few years back. So hopefully that tide is changing.
Yeah, we'll make it change. We'll go out there and remind folks that nobody retains things for very long. And the world is always changing and evolving. So if the world is always changing and evolving, our training too should be changing and evolving to meet the needs of the new world. There is nothing shameful about continuous training. There is a lot powerful about continuous training, but nothing shameful, nothing negative. It's the right thing to do. If you want people to behave a certain way, you need to make that behavior clear. It's the responsibility of the business. And we just help businesses live into that responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. So my last question for you, Max, is this.
Sure.
You know about the customer service revolution. You know that our audience is made up of business owners and leaders and directors all across an organization. And they're coming because they understand that customer experience is important to what they do. It could be a primary part of their job. And as you mentioned already, the synergy that you have with your book and with Lessonly is tied in so well with customer experience and customer service. So my question is, with all the great information that you have and you're going to share at our conference, what's the one thing that you're most excited about sharing with this particular group?
Yeah, I want to ask them what are their rituals? What are the rituals that you're practicing on a daily basis? Because whatever it is that you do, you will do more of whatever it is that you do. So if you're doing something right now, expect to do more of that same thing in the future. If you don't want to do more of it tomorrow, don't do it today. So I'm going to really challenge people to think about what are the rituals that I'm doing, and am I even conscious of my rituals? And a ritual is just, a behavior that I engage in on a daily basis or a weekly basis, because you become those behaviors. You become unconsciously whatever it is, whatever rituals you practice. I want people to be cognizant of their rituals, because sometimes their rituals do not lead them to be the person that they want to be. And little things like asking clarifying questions, like highlighting what's working. These are rituals. And the more we engage in these rituals, the more we will naturally do them and they will become a part of us. And if you want to be somebody who looks to the bright side of things, then highlighting what's working is a really good idea. If you want to be somebody who's really clear, and really listens to people before they speak, asking clarifying questions is a great ritual. So I want people to walk out of there and say, wow, what are my rituals? Because sometimes we're not even aware of what we do every day. We're not aware of the purpose that the things that we do every day serve. And I want people to be more conscious of what they do so they can really plot a course for being the person that they want to be as opposed to the person that they just might happen to be.
Wow, great stuff, Max. Really great. So
thanks, Dave.
We talked about rituals. We talked about clarifying questions. We talked about focusing on the positives, what's working well, asking the question, what am I spreading, which I love. So we covered a lot of ground, and we're just starting to scratch the surface.
Yeah, a lot more to go.
You have. So if people weren't excited about the customer service revolution already, you're a great reason as to why they should be, because there are more great tools to come. So thanks for making the time. It was great to have you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in Cleveland.
Dave, thanks for having me. I love talking about this stuff. It was really fun, and thanks everybody for listening. There's a lot more to unpack, and I'm excited to meet you in Cleveland as well.
And we will be unpacking that, as Max said, on September 11th and 12th in Cleveland, Ohio. That's 2019. It's right around the corner. So if you have not purchased your tickets yet, you can do so. Be sure to check out our website, customerservicerevolution.com. All the information is there, or you can give any one of us at the DiJulius Group a call, an email, whatever works best for you. We'd be happy to help you out. Max, thank you again. It was great to have you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person.
It will be great. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks again.
Thank you.